Marrying for money sucks and I do not recommend it. Married a 40-year-old when I was 19. Started dating when I was 17. Yes, it was gross, but that's what happened. The only reason he married me is because I was hot. The only reason I married him is because he had money. Now, I actually do have other redeeming characteristics, but he married me because I was hot. I know this. Everyone knows this. It doesn't feel great, but I can deal with it. We've been married 20 years. 4 kids. So we are stable, and we have lots in common at this point. And we do love each other, but if I could go back and slap myself, I would. What nobody tells you, or they try, and you don't listen because you're a dumbass teenager, is that marrying like this means you will fucking owe him. For everything. Every goddamn day. Not just in the bedroom, but in every other matter in your life. The stuff you never imagined someone else trying to decide for you. And you don't just owe him for the money. It's a lot heavier than that. He'll never say it out loud. But you'll know the deal. Fundamentally unequal. He'll pull rank at the most random times, and it will make you feel like you're falling through the floor. I don't hate my life or anything. I accept that I made this bed and I have to lie in it, but I wouldn't recommend it to anyone else. My oldest daughter is 2 years younger than I was when I met my husband, and I can't imagine. I added Tabasco to Wendy's chili and used it to get second place in a chili cook-off. Title basically says it all. This wasn't a professional organized competition. There was some BMX event with a couple hundred people, and they always have a chili cook-off. I'm not much for cooking, so I thought it would be funny to throw a bunch of Wendy's chili in a crock pot and see if anyone noticed. They didn't. I've been a vegetarian for roughly 12 years, so this was a long time ago. Cop pulled me over and I called 911 and lied to get out of going to jail. When I was 19, I was running late to work in my tiny POS economy car and on fumes of gas. I didn't come to a complete stop on a right turn. Lights behind me, so I pull over. I know I barely got any gas at all and was almost to a gas station, hence why I rolled through the stop a little, trying not to have the car die. At the time, around 1995, a new digital phone had come out called VoiceSteam, now T-Mobile. And their whole big thing was the phones were digital and not cellular. They were the first phones with caller ID. And one of the big things the salesman had said over and over was, since it was digital, the signal couldn't be triangulated or traced. Not that I cared, but it stuck in my mind. Well, as I give the cop my license, registration, and insurance card, I got an idea. I knew if I was late to work, I was going to lose my job. They were super strict there. So I get an idea, and right after I hand the papers to the cop, and he's walking back to his cruiser, I called 911 and tell the operator, I just saw a guy with what looked like a shotgun walk into a 7-Eleven that was about 2 blocks away. I confirmed the address, then I hung up. About 30 seconds later, the cops come sprinting to my car and hands me all my stuff and rushed says, come to a complete stop next time, then peels off to the direction of the store. Pushed my car to the gas station that I'd almost made it to and felt pretty pleased with my ingenuity. I was an idiot, and I confess. So it wouldn't have been just a few minutes late to work. The job was a physical high turn over one that didn't tolerate much. I paid a couple of girls to feign interest in my mate. I've got a mate who's nearly 30 now. To be honest, he's not a great-looking bloke, but more importantly, he's had no experience with girls ever, which sucks because he's genuinely a great dude and maintains friendships with some girls, but he tends to friend-zone himself before asking one out. He's suffered pretty hardcore anxiety and depression and hates going out, so this year at my birthday, one of the only events he'll come out for, because he's a great bloke and knows it means a lot to me, I asked a couple of random girls if I could shout them a drink and they could just compliment my mate on something and have a small chat. No obligation to be anything but just polite and nice, and my lord, he's been a different dude ever since. His confidence has skyrocketed. He's even asking when we're going out next. The current state of this country has me panicking. I'm having panic attacks left and right. Somebody please tell me that relates. It's becoming super hard to function in society. It's hard to go to work. I've called out like 4 times in the past month. I can't just ignore everything that is going on. I have no idea how some people can just act like everything is okay. Nothing is okay. Are you guys worried at all? Is it interfering with your life at all? Please help. I can't live like this anymore. Some of you are right. I should probably see a therapist. I find peace, and knowing that there are others that feel like me. It helps to know I'm not alone in feeling this way. I do literally nothing at work for 7 months now, and nobody has noticed. My day is pretty boring. I get to work, I open my PC, and I stare at my screen for 8 hours straight. Most days I have absolutely nothing to do, and the days there's some work, it takes, at most, a couple hours of my time. I work in an open space, but nobody has noticed, so I guess I'm really good at seem busy. My bosses respect me and even thank me for my work. I don't know for how long I will be able to keep going, but I'm going to exploit the situation the best I can. It's also my first job and an entry role, without much room for progress. I've stolen hundreds of dollars worth of water just by saying 5 words. My college has a food court in one of the main buildings, Chick-fil-A, sandwich place, salad bar, etc. You get your food and pay at the exit every single time. I've eaten lunch there since I was a freshman. I grab a bottle of water with my meal, walk up to pay, and say, I brought the water in. The employees aren't paid enough to care, and I pay enough in tuition to not feel bad about it. I run a fake restaurant on a delivery app. I registered a company, bought all the takeaway boxes from Amazon, signed up for a few delivery apps, made a few social media accounts, and printed leaflets that I drop in mailboxes. I resell microwave meals. On some meals, I add something to make them look better, like cheese. So far, it's at around £200 a day in revenue. Nobody suspects a thing. Soon someone will come for hygiene inspection. But I'll pass that check without any problems. It's not illegal to operate out of your own kitchen. Should I feel bad? I feel kind of proud to be fair and free as a bird from the 9-to-5 life. This shouldn't be your concern. I'm legal. This is a confession sub, not legal advice. Not breaking any laws, just ruining my karma IRL for selling people heated up food from a microwave at home. My little cousin cracked my iPhone XS Max screen, made my aunt pay $329, knowing I have AppleCare, and it only cost me $29. My little cousins are the biggest shits in the world, and my aunt pretty much lets them do whatever they want without consequence. They were roughhousing, and knocked my phone off the counter, shattering the screen. My closest Apple store is about 2 hours away, and it's a huge inconvenience for me to drive there, not to mention the extra gas. So instead of explaining this to her, she's the kind of person who doesn't care about things that don't affect her directly, I told her it was $329 to fix, which is true if I didn't have AppleCare. She wrote me a check for $329, and I only had to pay $29, and I pocketed the extra $300. I consider that my non-disclosed inconvenience fee. EDAT. My cousins are 14 and 15, not exactly toddlers. I intentionally ask women well above the legal age limit, alcohol, to show me their ID. I work as a cashier at a grocery store. Whenever a middle-aged woman, who clearly looks older than 21, purchases alcohol from me, I intentionally ask them to show me their ID. I do this because somewhere deep down I feel that, if I ask them for their ID, it creates an impression that they look far younger than they are. I do this every chance I get, regardless of how busy the line is, in hopes of making them feel younger and possibly happier. I stole over $20,000 in a very creative way in the 90s. I worked at a fast food chain in the 90s when I was in high school. When I worked there, they were in the process of phasing out denominational gift certificates. $5, $10, and $25. The way it worked was if you spent more than half of the certificate, they gave you the cash back. So if you ordered $5.50 worth of food and gave them one of the $10 gift cards, they gave you the $4.50 back in cash. My manager was in charge of destroying all the existing certificates as we transitioned to the more traditional credit card-looking gift cards. So my manager said he shredded the certificates like he was supposed to. But one night when I was closing, I found 2 boxes of the gift cards tucked deep in the dry storage room. They were filled with the certificates that were supposed to be shredded. So I scooped them up, brought them out to the dumpster in trash bags, and threw them away. After we closed, I came back and recovered the back and brought the certificates home. I counted them. There were $1,000, $25, $1,010, and $500 5 certificates. None of them had expiration dates. Total haul was $40,000 in fast food certificates. My manager never said a word. He couldn't. He had reported them destroyed weeks earlier. Over the next 3 years, my girlfriend and I toured every location in our state, and the next 4 states ordering food and getting the change. We never kept track on a spreadsheet or anything, but we got good at knowing what menu items were just about half. After the first year, we started saving the change in a shoebox and let it build up. I bought my first car for $7,800 cash from the change. And for some reason, a kiddie cone was $1.05. If you gave them a $5 cert, they gave you $3.95 back. We threw away a lot of kiddie cones. Holy crap, this blew up. Here are the answers to some of the FAQs. Quote, we could hit 10 to 12 stores in a day if we drove around for 5 to 6 hours. Both of us would use a gift cert. It was not that labor intensive. 2. The only cameras in the store were at the cash registers and takeout window. 3. The manager has no clue who took them, or at least never treated mine differently. 4. Each gift certificate had a generic PLU on them. EI. All the $25 were PLU number 756. 5. Ice kicks. When we stopped selling the certificates, we were told to keep honoring them because they were prepaid. They were not coupons. 6. One can only eat so many ice cream cones. Our elf on the shelf is dead forever, and I am so relieved. Last year, my son, then 9, decided Elf on the Shelf was not real when he had a friend over. Touched it, picked it up, threw it on the floor, and later electrical taped it to a robot vacuum. My youngest was watching and laughed, and I thought, finally, nobody believes in this annoying elf anymore. So, Pinecone the elf disappeared after that. This December, my youngest child asked if Elf on the Shelf was coming back, and I told her no. Pretty sure her brother had killed him forever. And I don't even feel guilty because the holiday season is so much less stressful without it. To all parents, do not get sucked into getting an elf on the shelf. It will be the bane of your existence for years to come. Time edit. Apparently, lots of people have strong feelings about the elf. The kids and I had an awesome holiday. We went to Christmas festivals and school programs. They were in a holiday play. We made Christmas cookies and all of the typical holiday joy, and not once did we miss the stupid elf. If the elf works for your family, that's great. And I mean that sincerely. If you're hanging on by a thread, and your cup is empty, and one more thing to remember is the last thing you want to do, be kind to yourself. Your kids would rather spend time with a less stressed parent than to have all this extra stuff. I'm the guy that used to put extra McNuggets in your order. I killed an elderly man in front of his wife and basically his entire family. Forgive me for any misspellings or format. I'm trying to do this on my phone. I haven't talked about this to anyone, even though it's been years. Even my closest of friends, minus the ones that were there. One night, when I was in college, I was driving to get some liquor for a party my fraternity was supposed to throw the following night. I was taking a street I was very familiar with to get back to my house. It was dark, but the street was lit with street lamps. I remember that I looked at my radio for a second. Just a second. Not very long at all. But when I looked back up to the road, there was a man crossing. I didn't have any time to react. By the time I saw him, he had already hit the hood of my car and bounced off the side. I remember screaming and hitting the brakes, and the wash of horror of what had just happened. I'll admit I had thought about speeding away, but I pulled over to the side and ran out of my car to check on this guy. When I got to him, his family was standing outside the restaurant he was leaving, and they were all screaming and crying. He is laying on the side of the road, with blood coming out his nose and mouth. 2 other men were standing with him trying to see if he was all right and calling 911. All I could say was, I didn't see him. I was frantic by the time it had set in what I had done. Now, I sat on the curb across from the family and listened to their crying in agony while we waited for the paramedics to arrive. I sat there and sobbed while the paramedics took him away in an ambulance. I don't believe I've ever cried so hard and for so long there. The worst part about all of it, and what still kills me today, was that his wife came over to me while I was distraught on that curb, sat next to me, placed her hand on my shoulder and said, "I was married to him for almost 50 years. We had a good life." Then she hugged me and said that she forgave me. After everything was said and done, it was ruled that it was an accident. I wasn't charged with anything, and I had one of my friends pick me up from the police station. I went down a dark path the years after that. I drank heavily, dropped out of college in my senior year, and had to move back in with my mother and father because I couldn't hold on to a job, even tried to kill myself with pills. It was a hard road to recovery, which I feel I'm not fully recovered from, nor do I feel I ever will be the same. But eventually I got my life back in order, joined up with the Navy, and saw a bit of the world, and now I'm on track to go back to college and hopefully finish what I started there. It took almost a decade, but I finally start to feel almost whole again. I'm back to hanging with my friends, and actually going out, so maybe there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Wow, you guys are awesome. Thanks for the support and feedback. I've never really posted anything on Reddit before because people can be assholes, but all these kind words are moving. Thank you! And big thanks to whoever reformatted my post. Found out my dead best friend was in love with my wife. I'm writing this as a confession because I don't know where else to speak about this, and I don't want my kids finding this out on my main account. My friend died a few months back due to heart problems. He was taking care of himself, so it was a shock to everyone, especially his wife who was with him at their house when he died. Due to this, she decided to move somewhere else, and because she and her daughter were still distraught, she asked me to pack up his stuff. He had some boxes in his basement, and after a while I started feeling nostalgic and decided to look into them. I found pictures of us from when we were kids, all the way to before we got married. That was enough to make me feel bad, and I just got back to taping them up. But one of the boxes seemed to be in much better condition, so I decided to check it in case it was something important. To my surprise, I found out pictures of him and my wife from when we used to hang out together, as well as more recent pictures from family reunions, the most recent being from my wife's birthday party. Alongside the pictures there were letters that he never sent her. The first one dated 2 months before I met her. The last one was also the same date of her birthday party. There was one that stood out the most, was one from after I started dating her. He wrote that his time had passed, and since my happiness was as important as his own, he would watch over us. I'll keep his box safe, since it isn't my secret to reveal. I used to reprice steaks at my work when I was younger. When I was 18, I worked at a Piggly Wiggly grocery store. Now, after the meat department guys went home at like 3 p.m., it was part of my job to restock meat on the sales floor throughout the night. At the time, my mom worked nights, and my stepdad would always be passed out drunk when I got home, so there would never be dinner for my brother and me. I'd always bring him home whatever he wanted, usually junk food like Hot Pockets, chips, etc. And I went through a huge steak phase. My family was kind of poor, so we almost never got steak. It felt fancy to me, so I would go find the thickest steak we had in the cooler and change the sticker price. So instead of being like $11.99, it was $1.99, making it exponentially cheaper. I did this probably twice a week for over a year and was never caught. I overcharged over 5,000 people. Back in high school, I used to work the concession stand. In my school, the booth was a little folding table where I would sell water, pop, and chips. To anyone that was a visiting team, I would charge 25 cents, 0.50 more on the items they wanted to buy, and I would keep it. I ended up making somewhere around $3,000 doing this for my high school career, and no one ever found out because I didn't charge anyone from the home team the same amount. I cheated to get my bachelor's and my master's degree. Yeah, I cheated. I didn't write any of my papers, I didn't do any of the work myself, I stole a lot of work, took only classes anyone I knew did, and used all their work for it with minor changes. I made it through 6 years and got 2 degrees. I got a scholarship out of high school by cheating. I cheated during the SAT, I cheated most of my life, and I feel a little bad but not really. Met a random woman at a large corporate function, and she confessed. I was recently at a large corporate party with many people I didn't know from different offices around the country. I was making small talk with the wife of someone I didn't know, and she started making humorous complaints about her husband. Nothing serious. Typical middle-aged marriage jokes. We're laughing and says we've never before and we will probably never meet again. So can I tell you something I need to get off my chest? I say sure, and she confesses that she had a years-long affair that ended about 2 years ago. I smile and say, that's not uncommon and not so bad. She then gets very serious and says that's not the bad part. He recently died of cancer, and she so wanted to see him before he died, but she couldn't. Her husband actually knew about the affair, but his wife never did. She was on the verge of tears, saying she couldn't even go to the funeral. But she did go to his grave afterwards. She couldn't talk to her husband about it. She couldn't talk to anyone. I wanted to ask her more questions, but she stopped me. She got herself together and left to join her husband. Before the evening ended, she talked to me again, with other people around. Big smile on her face, saying what a great, fun conversation we had. She asked to exchange numbers, which we did. She started texting me 2 days later, giving me a bit more details about the affair, explaining that she really loved the guy and missed him terribly, and then told me that her marriage was miserable and that she believes her husband is really gay. I carry pumpkin seeds in my pocket and plant them everywhere I go. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I carry pumpkin seeds in my pocket and plant them everywhere I go. I've been doing this for over 20 years. There is no reason that I do this other than I find it funny. I hear whispers, I don't know how a pumpkin grew here, lol. I never run out of seeds. I got pumpkin patches across the country. My aunt hit my mother, so I dragged her across the floor and punched her till she passed out. My aunt is a poisonous woman. Our whole family doesn't talk to her. She's done things in the past you wouldn't believe. So she left our lives years ago. Recently, she returned out of the blue at my mom's house. My mom has 2 other sisters and a brother. My mom and aunt never got on. My mom is a lovely person, but she could sense from a young age something was off about her sister. So she kept her distance. My aunt was nasty and would hurt people's feelings intentionally for no reason. She never had a partner or kids. She isolated herself from everyone. My gran cut her off when she tried to steal thousands of dollars from her. We all genuinely think there's something physiologically wrong with her. So back to where I was going with this. One morning I was at my mom's house, just chilling out, and there was a knock at the door. So I opened it, and there she was. She walked in. She looked like she had took drugs. She looked dead behind the eyes. I tried to stop her, but she pushed me down. I honestly don't know why she came to my mom's house. Out of everyone, I quickly got up and she went into the kitchen. She startled my mom and punched her in the face. My mom didn't even have a chance to blink before she hit her. She went down like a ton of bricks. My heart felt like it had been sucked through into my stomach when I seen it. Something came over me. I don't know if it was anger or adrenaline, but I ran up behind her and grabbed her hair. And I dragged her out onto the back lawn, and I bashed her face about 15 times. Blood was everywhere. Thankfully no one seen me. Or, I might not have been writing this right now. I got up, and I left her there. I went to check my mom. She was in a lot of pain. I looked back out the window, and she was gone. We told our family immediately about this, and they were perplexed and angry as to why she just turned up and attacked my mom. I'm still so hurt and angry as I write this, but I also feel tremendously guilty and upset that I done that to her, because I've never fought anyone, and I'm not a fighter at all, but something came over me, and I snapped. I can't get over it for some reason. It just seems so unreal, and there was no reason for the attack. God forbid she had a weapon. That's truly scary to think about. We didn't call the police, as I assaulted her badly and didn't want it to bounce back on me. That's another thing I feel ashamed about. But should I feel bad or not? I need others' opinions, as I've been bottling this up for a while. My gran was devastated. She just wanted her daughter back, but from a young age she took to drugs, spent time in prison, and an amount of other things. You can't help someone who doesn't want to be saved.